Welcome to today's video. We're going to take the new Trans Am and the C6 Corvette to a local car show. We're also going to do a little bit of maintenance on both of them. The Corvette's going to get all new brake fluid. It's looking really black, and I wanted to do that and put pads on it before Power Cruise this year. So that's going to get done. And on the Trans Am, we're going to do a little bit of an oil change and try and figure out what it needs suspension-wise. I did see that it needs lower control arm relocation brackets. If you look under the car, the angle of the lower control arms, it's not level, if that's level. They're a little cockeyed. So it'll change the mounting point on the rear differential so they are parallel with the ground. It'll keep the rear end from binding under hard throttle or anything. And especially with these 315 Mickey Thompsons on, I think it's probably a good idea. We'll also change the differential fluid in there like we did on the C6, put the same stuff in. So, until then, here's a cold start, and we'll do a little bit of a car show montage. When I had originally bought this car, the seats were actually pulled out of the back. I guess it was a lightweight mod. I don't know why. Someone would have pulled them out, but they're kind of just sitting there right now. They look like they're in, but I got to put in the two bottom seat bolts and get the seat belts fastened back on there. It's not much to look at, but that's going to get done. In the last video, I talked about removing the decals that were on here, which I did. This used to have like a carbon fiber wrap on it. So did the roof bar, and obviously it's gone now. The Bilstein decal's gone, and the F-Body Nation sticker's gone. So I'm sorry, maybe you loved it, but I didn't, and it had to go.
Whenever your heart is broken, don't ever forget you're golden. I will find the light in your soul, I'll be there.
Pretty much got the back dialed in. Seatbelt mechanisms are both bolted up. Trim's all in place, nice and tight. Put the cargo cover back on, we'll get to the front. So ran into a little bit of a problem putting the seats in. Turns out that's a great noise. Of all the tools that I got, I don't have any Torx bits. So we're gonna go to AutoZone really quick and get some bits, and we'll be right back and finish the seat install. Well, AutoZone was closed, being it's 9:07. So we're gonna go to the next best place. We're going to Menards to get these 3/8 drive torque bits to finish the seat install. So, here we go. Well, that's probably one of the most frustrating things on the planet. All that for 15 bucks and tightening 2 bolts. Somehow or another, I didn't have any of these. So, we'll come back in a second when I get the bottom of the seat belt mounting tabs screwed down, and I guess the belt buckles screwed down too. On the front, there is just a bolt for the front of the seat bottoms. That's all that holds them in. So we have both the seat bottoms and the seat back, seat belts, seat belt buckles fully installed in the back of the Trans Am, and it looks pretty good. The bottom of the seat belt itself is a T50, just like the seat belt buckle, 13mm bolt on the front of the seat. And we're slowly but surely bringing this car back really close to what it's like from the factory. The biggest problem is that a young guy had his hands all over it and really wasn't taking good care of it. I suspect he's the one that did take out the back seats and put on the stickers. Maybe not, I don't know, it could have been the last owner. We never really talked about it because it didn't matter. So we'll get the car up in the air, and we have to clean up some residual power steering fluid from a leaky hose, which actually started leaking the night before I was going to buy it, or well, the day of buying it. He was at work, and the high pressure line started just pissing power steering fluid all over the place, but he was really, really cool, and he ended up fixing it in time for us to do the deal. So huge shout out to him. He was really a stand-up guy, and he made good on the deal. I was a little bit worried it was going to fall apart or he was going to back out of selling it, but he did his part, and good on him. Super good seller. So like I said, we'll get it up in the air, and we're going to clean up the engine cradle area. It hasn't leaked since, but I want to make sure it's nice and clean and it won't have any spots in the driveway or the garage. And we are going to do the rear differential fluid on this car while it's in the air. We will get the lower control arm relocation brackets coming, and that'll be done in a future video, and we'll go onto the underside of the car a little bit. Alright, so I got the car up in the air. Got a couple of jack stands up on the rear part of the rear subframe, and I did put a couple of those bigger blue jack stands up under the rear axle in case something developed. Probably better be safe than sorry. It's one of those sort of deals. So like anything, we'll end up cracking the fill plug first in case we can't get the pan cover off, so you know, at least it won't be drained and empty. If you have trouble getting that apart, you'll end up with a dry axle in the back, and that's a real problem. Now, I put all of the car's weight on those front red jack stands, so the rear axle is actually drooped probably, I'd say 6 to 8 inches. And it's just so that the rear axle is actually more level with the ground. And looking at it, it's really, really close. This is going to be pretty good for refilling it when we're all done here. So I'll crack the fill plug, take the pan off, and start to clean it up and see what we got. So you see the cover's off. Got a minimal mess. I spilled a little bit down there, but that's not the end of the world. Got some kitty litter on it. I'm going to clean up the little bolts that are for the differential cover, holding on, clean all the RTV off of them, and get the threads cleaned up, and I'll clean up the top plate. Take all the gasket material off the differential, get some RTV on it, seal it back up, put the pan on, and off we go. We'll refill it and move on to the oil change. So I've got the upper differential brace all stripped down. I got the bolts clean, differential cover cleaned. This was cleaned with a razor blade and a combination of a razor blade and a red Scotch-Brite pad. The same thing with the differential itself. Look up there, it looks pretty good. So the next step, I'll be using little Permatex Ultra Black RTV. So, you know, everybody's used it. It's a gasket maker. RTV does stand for room temperature vulcanizing. If you didn't know, the more you know. It just means at room temperature, it will turn into rubber or a gasket. So I'll put a bead all the way around it and around each bolt hole, and I'll stick it up on there. And after that, we should be about ready to tighten bolts down and refill the differential. So just like last time in the C6 on that stall, I'm putting in 75/90 gear oil. It's Lucas oil synthetic. It does have the limited slip differential additive in it. Now people will wonder whether or not you need to put the GM additive in this rear end, just like this one. If I recall, there's a GM technical service bulletin about that. You don't need to add it with like any of their limited slip differentials, including a Torsen one, but they will be more noisy without it, or the odds of it being noisy do increase. I guess to say it sounds like maybe turning a rusty screw. So when those little gears start meshing in there, you're going to be glad you had an additive in there. There's no reason to not add it. This includes it, or you can buy the little $2 bottle of GM additive at any parts store. But in this case, it's already got it included, so we're in no danger of wishing we did later. I'll get this filled up. I'm going to use my suction gun just like last time, and I'm going to not show you it this time because it makes a little bit of a mess and it's not really that incredible to watch. But whether or not you're aware, you fill it up on the drain plug, which I have left in. Let's see if you can see it here. Right there. There it is. That's the drain plug on the lower passenger side of the differential housing. Yeah, fill it up there till it starts spilling out, and then put the cap back on. Then you are all done on the rear end. You'll be ready to take it for a test drive. So we're done back here. I'm gonna get the car back down on the ground. I'm gonna give you one look at what's kind of been done. But I painted the rear end a little bit with a rubberized undercoating. It really just cleaned up the look of it. You know, so there's both sides of it. Got the differential all filled up with the Lucas synthetic, and I'm going to put it back down on the ground. Well, first I better get this rear end up in the air, and I'll show you what I mean about those lower control arm relocation brackets. Right now they're mounted up here. Those are the Heim joints. So those are the factory locations, and the relocation brackets will drop them down. And when I get it up in the air, it'll become more apparent that the angle of attack on those is way, way off. So let me get the rear end back up and I'll show you. So now the weight of the car is on the differential. Let's see if you can tell. If I can get a relatively straight shot. So I'll frame it up with the bottom of the floor. Well, maybe I better do it this way. There's the car's angle. I'm going to go for the bottom of this rocker panel. Okay, that's going to be our straight reference. That's straight. You see how they kick up higher on this end? It goes down. The relocation brackets will drop it below the shock point, right about here, so it's straight in line with the rocker. That's what we want. I'll reach out to UMI. That's what's on here, and I was just making sure that I did need them, and it's definitely off because the car is lowered. So I'll get a couple of those coming, and they're pretty easy to put in. I put them in on a 4th gen already, so I kind of know what I'm up against, and it's pretty straightforward. So, with the car down, change the oil, and we'll go for a little ride. Alright, so we got the car up in the air, and there's the puddle that the power steering fluid left. I hadn't done it for a couple days, so I'm a little bit curious as to why it's still pissing fluid. It shouldn't be. And you can see how greasy and wet it is. I bet you he never cleaned it up when he was done changing it. So I got the new Mobil 1 oil filter installed and drain plug reinstalled. All the oil is drained out into a pan, which will go in the bucket and get recycled, but I use Mobil 1 5W30 synthetic. All we gotta do is fill it up and we are done. Well, that about does it for the oil change. Let's see if this will stay where it is. We got oil pressure. Trouble is, as soon as I started it today, the water pump started leaking. What are the odds of that? It's definitely coming from the water pump. You can see it on the bottom. Let me shut the car off. If you look on the bottom half of the water pump, you can't see it from the top here, but it appears to be leaking. And I don't know why. Very sad. You'd like to think that the previous owner told you everything, and I'm sure the guy did, but that is straight from the water pump, it looks like. So that's super handy. It hadn't left a spot any other day, so I would say it probably just did start leaking, but the odds of it happening are really shitty. I've only had the car for like 5 days, and they're not the most fun to change. I've done them before, but we'll see. I'll have to look into it and see if I can't find somewhere else that's leaking from, and maybe we'll get lucky. I don't know. Well, anyways, that's going to about do it for today's video. If you did like what you watched, make sure you give it a like and subscribe. Come back and maybe we'll do a little bit with the cooling system on that car. I think it needs something. I don't exactly know what yet, but it might be a water pump. Other than that, in the next video, we will do that and probably put in the lower control arm relocation bracket. But until then, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Whenever your heart is broken, don't ever forget you're golden. I will find the light in your soul.